Hello everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment podcast in partnership with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As my colleague Rose has just mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Jens onto the podcast today. So hopefully you can still hear me okay, Jens?
I can hear you very well, thank you.
Perfect. So whereabouts in the world do we find you today, Jens?
So I am actually in a small village called Wohlen outside Bern.
Nice.
I am spending a couple of days at my partner's wonderful apartment.
Lovely. That sounds wonderful. I think obviously we're recording this in mid July 2022, and it's in the middle of a bit of a heat wave at the moment. So to be in that situation, being in a really nice apartment in Switzerland with the weather like this, there's not many more idyllic places you can be, really.
No, and I started the day with a bike ride out in the wonderful landscape, with a clear blue sky. So it doesn't get better than that.
Excellent. That's good to hear. And I know one of the things I'm going to be asking you about maybe a bit later on is actually how you structure and plan your day. So maybe this will come into part of that as well. And but maybe just a way to start the podcast off to ease you into the conversation and keep it quite lighthearted to start with. As Rose did mention, the partnership with Operation Smile and EMEA is really important to us. And given that their company name is Operation Smile, I thought I'd just ask you what the last thing was that made you smile, Jens.
That's very easy to say. That's my partner, Sabine, who is an absolutely magnificent human being, a wonderful person. And she puts a smile on my face every day. And also a smile in my heart. So that's and it's there all the time, actually, even if I'm not with her as I am these days. So that's very easy. And I have to add, I have 4 kids, right? As we talked about a little bit before we started, and they also put a smile on my face and in my heart pretty much all the time.
Right, so I know, you mentioned earlier on you have four children, and it's great to hear that your partner Sabine is making sure you keep smiling, which is great to hear. I mean, is there any secrets to your success of being a great family man?
No, actually not. I think my kids actually. At least the first 3 of them, I didn't really want. It just sort of happened, and so I didn't plan on having 4 kids. Right? They have 3 different moms. Actually, the 2 youngest ones, 13 and 19, they're with my ex-wife, but the 2 older ones are with two different moms. It just sort of happened, and so I'm profoundly grateful that it did, but there's no secret to it like that, other than maybe not having the courage to tell your partner, no, I don't want any kids.
I mean, I think one of the things that a lot of people talk about on the podcast is what they learnt from the whole COVID situation. I mean, there's obviously that there is a big negative side to it all, but to try and look at it in a positive way. I mean, do you feel, obviously, having 4 children and trying to balance work and family life, it is tough at the best of times, but especially in the early days of COVID, I think it was very challenging for everybody. I mean, are you someone who is quite structured in terms of organizing your day and making sure you're focusing and prioritizing on the right things?
I think relatively structured. And I, as far as I'm concerned, COVID from that point of view also came with a silver lining, because I learned that I can actually work from home and I can enjoy it. And before that, I was sort of forced to do that. I didn't think I could. And in my, in the pre-COVID period, right, I would go to the office when I had one to go to every day, right? Even if there were no people there that were of relevance, if you will, for what I was doing, I would get out of my wherever I lived, and go to the office simply to get the change of environment, because now I go into like work mode. But obviously under COVID, you had to figure it out. And I learned that not only can I work from home, I actually enjoy it a lot, and including the freedom that comes with it. So while I do have a relatively structured day, it's also flexible. Because you can, right? You're not in the office all the time, so you can take a break, 2 hours during the day, and if you don't have any calls or anything, then you can go for a bike ride if the weather's good, right? Or you can go for a run or a hike or something like that. And obviously you couldn't do that if you weren't working from home.
Mm-hmm. No, this is true, and I think it brings around a point that I wanted to ask you about in relation to leadership, actually. Because I looking at the recommendations that you have on LinkedIn as a starting point. I mean, that you've got some glowing recommendations of your leadership skills from people who've worked with you in their team. I mean, there's a couple of them on there that have described you as the best leader that they've ever worked for, which is a great compliment. I mean, given that the world is changing now, and yourself as well as many other people are working from home a lot more, is there any advice you will give to leaders or aspiring leaders from your experience that you've gained over the years?
Yeah. First and foremost, right? And this is maybe saying something that is sort of beaten already a lot, but it really is true, right? And it's easier to say than actually do, and that is talent is what it is all about, right? Now, talent doesn't only mean that people are technically good at what they do. I view talent holistically, right? So it's also a personality thing, a cultural background thing, an attitude. Right, it's all of those things together, right? If you hire people that are talented within that holistic definition, you're already very well off, right? And then what you have to do as a leader, right, it is to give them direction and context, and then get out of the way and enjoy the view, right? That it's really that simple, and if you can do that, if you're actually capable of doing that, right, you'll get magnificent joy out of working with the people that you have hired, and they will grow, and they will have a lot of fun. And when I say get out of the way, I don't mean leave them alone. I mean certainly be around and to support and to coach, as is needed, on all levels. Be very very present, but not in their way. Right. Mm-hmm. And never let them make their own choices on how to go about doing what it is that they're doing, and let them learn from it. Right. That's the starting point. Mm-hmm. And then show them trust. Right. Then it's amazing what you can see and what can be achieved, while the team or people also are enjoying themselves a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's really, really interesting what you mentioned there, as you say, giving people direction and making sure they're aware of the context of decisions, and giving the team members the trust to do the job themselves, but also, as you say, being there when needed to help and guide in the right direction. I mean, did you have to change your style at all as you became more remote working, or was there any tips on being a remote leader that you've learned over the last 3.5 years?
Yeah, so conceptually, no. The same which I just explained, that still applies completely, right? But if you have, as I do now, your team spread over 9 countries with 18 different nationalities, you need to work harder on ensuring that people feel connected and ensuring that people feel that they're part of a team, that they are supported, right, and that the team is, one unit that is there for each other, right, and that actually, even though you're spread, with thousands of kilometers in between, we're still all in the same boat. And that requires a little bit of a different approach, right? Because you're not all the same in the office, right? At the same time, right? The office is huge, right? It's, if you will, geographically, and therefore, the communication, which already in an office can be difficult, it requires an even harder and more structured effort. And making sure that the people are in sync, right, and they're tightly aligned, requires that you might have more meetings that you normally would, formal ones, right? Whereas because the informal stuff is difficult, you don't have a coffee together very often, right? So that requires a special effort, and it what's important here is that you have the whole teams buy in to deliver that effort. It has to be driven from me, for sure, and I'm ultimately responsible, but everybody has to chip in on this and really work hard at it. But we started, I started at Bolt effectively August 1, 2020. And as part of my starting, I hired one person who started at the same time actually as August 1. And now the team we're 25 and will be 31 before the end of the year, right? And so it works, and people are, as far as I can see also from the surveys that are made, they are doing really well and they're enjoying it a lot.
That's great to hear. I mean, you mentioned the team there, that it's a substantial team that's growing. I think 18 different nationalities across 10 countries, so there's so much going on for you there. And I thought I'd just ask you really what it feels like to be in your current position at Bolt right now.
But it's a huge privilege, right? I am incredibly grateful to be able to do what I'm doing, and I am grateful, even grateful plus, because this is the second time I get to build a team from scratch. And so I did it before at Spotify as well, where I started as the first one and built a team of, I think 21, 22, just absolutely magnificent tax professionals, before I took a break. And I learned a lot from that. And I now get to do the same and to apply all the learnings that I took with me from building the team at Spotify. And I mean, that's an enormous privilege to get to do that. I don't think most people don't ever get to do it at all. And I actually am now doing it for the second time. Right? That's a huge, I'm just grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, where does the passion for tax come from for you? Because I mean, I mentioned your LinkedIn recommendations earlier, but the other thing that really flows through all of the recommendations is that you're someone who has a real passion and drive for the job that you do in the tax and treasury audit role. So I was just sort of ask where the passion comes from and why you enjoy that discipline so much.
I think it's this. I mean, you having recruited, a lot of tax people. I mean, you might have sort of seen that as well. We have a genetic mutation, right? I mean, I know. Joking aside, I mean, we might have, right? But joking aside, what I like about it is, to start with, right? It's the combination of law and business economics. That's what is the interesting part. It's that to be good at tax, you actually have to be able to be good at both law and economics, right? And especially business economics. And though there are two subjects that I individually like a lot, each of them, but in the combination, that's what really makes it interesting. And then adding on to that, right? If you will, going, way back to 100 years ago to my time in Deloitte, right? I like the advisory part, dealing with the different clients, trying to understand their businesses, right? And as well as now on through quite a few years now on the industry side, right? Understanding the business that we're in, right? And contributing to that, and you can't do a good job if you don't, as you know, in tax or treasury or if you don't understand the business that you're in. And that part of it added on top, I really like a lot. And there are a couple of, right, the strategy around building, tax and now also treasury and internal audit. There's the strategy around it I really like a lot as well. That is something that triggers me a lot. Also looking, further ahead, in the future and trying to build a strategy. That triggers me also very much. And the last thing is, when we talk about the tax circle of life, right? And you start with the planning, and you have the implementation, and you have the compliance, and then as the final point in the cycle, right? You have the audit, right? Even maybe controversy, right? That part of it also I like a lot, right? Because there you don't only apply all the technical stuff that and your understanding of the business, you also add into that psychology and culture, right? Which just makes and the individual psychology, right, of the persons actually who are conducting the audit of, and now in our case of both, right, and maneuvering within that, I also find that very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular part of your career that you feel has been the most memorable?
I mean, I've had a huge joy throughout my career. I've gotten to work for very, very interesting companies and gotten to work with, truly great people. Picking. I mean, if I had to pick, I would say the experience I'm having now and the experience I had working at Spotify, because that type of company and the culture that's there, and I have to say the general level of talent in companies like Spotify and Bolt is very, very high, and to work with people that are that good, right, and inspired and driven and passionate about what they do and the mission of the company is just that's amazing. And there's very little. One of the things that I don't like company policy. I'm not very good at that. I'm like a bull in a porcelain shop when it comes to that. And I have transparency, the only thing that works for me, right? So but here also in this type of, there's very little politics, right? It really is, it's about what's the best thing to do for the company, not what's the best thing to do for my department or myself or somebody else. It really is about what's the right thing for the company, and that to me is also the best type of environment to be in.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned a bit there about your approach and your mentality towards situations and choosing the right career moves. So I thought I'd ask you a bit about how these things have come around, because I suppose there's a lot of people who may have had a number of years of experience in tax, treasury, audits, but won't necessarily have had these great opportunities, especially where you are, setting up things from scratch. They're great opportunities to be involved in really exciting and varied and enjoyable things for a lot of people. It's not for everybody, but for a lot of people. So are you somebody who typically sees the glass half full, and that's how the opportunities seem to come around? Or have you got a very strong network of people who reach out to you when these roles do come about?
I mean, professionally, I think the glass is pretty quite more than half full. I think I do have a very good network. I will have to say I have not, I haven't planned things, right? It's like now in 4 years, I'm gonna want to work in this type of company or anything. I've never done anything like that. I've actually, every single job I've had without thinking of that I'm going to do something else. The opportunities have just come about, all of them. Then the ones that I have taken, I've taken because it felt right. And, I haven't regretted any one of them. I think I've learned a lot from each of them and gotten to meet some great people and worked for some, very interesting companies throughout, but no, grand master plan of any kind, really.
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting. Because as I say, it's having worked with some of the companies that you work with and the roles you've been involved in, they're really the kind of roles you don't see very often in some of the companies that a lot of people would love to work for. And it's quite interesting to see your approach on that. But I think one of the things you've also been consistent with in the conversation so far is working with great people, is surrounding yourself with great people who are going to put the efforts and energy in and who you can trust. And aligned to that, I mean, given obviously we're on a recruitment podcast, I can't really not ask you a recruitment-based question around this subject, really. I mean, how do you personally go about doing that, about finding great people to work with? I mean, over the years, are there certain steps that you take in order to have a really efficient and effective recruitment process on quality people?
It's actually been very sort of ad hoc, considering the resources of the recruiting team of the companies that I have been with at the current time. For in general, I've had the good fortune throughout many years of having been able to, through strong internal recruiting teams, and also through a pretty big effort actually on my own part, and now also on my team's part, using all the tools available, including, for instance, LinkedIn and other similar platforms, to find people, and that is, that's really it. I think the key point here, you will get on some of the jobs, right? You get 500 CVs, right? And the key point is it's picking the right ones, actually, and that's not that. There's quite a lot of art to that. I've learned also, you just have to do the work. I mean, it takes a lot of time. And it's hard, right? And sometimes you've had it looking at interviews or talking to people, but you just have to not give up and not compromise on what it is you're looking for. And again, this approach for me, you don't just look at the technical qualifications, right? You look at the whole person, right? The energy of the person, right? All of the personality and the background. And if you feel there's a connection in addition to the technical qualification, that's when it starts to become interesting. But you don't ever hire anybody where you don't go, yes, I want him or her to join the team. It will be great, right? If you don't have that, but you sort of feel you're compromising, then it's a no. And this is something that I've spent quite a bit of energy with my team, especially here at Bolt, where we've grown quite a lot, and I have some people obviously do hiring for their teams, and I always talk to all of them right before we hire somebody, and it's been very, very difficult, and you must have felt that also in the past at least a year. It's never been easy in my part of the world, right? To find good people, but now it is incredibly difficult, and you get not very many qualified CVs, and if you then have a team lead that is desperate in need of resources, right? You know, and they don't have the experience, then they might compromise, and that's something I'm very adamant on. No compromise, right? If there's any doubt about a person, there's no doubt, because then it's a no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of my learning. I have a few times used when all things fail, right? You reach out to recruiting firms such as EMEA Recruitment, right, for help. But for me, that's sort of a last resort, which, by the way, we've been very close to having to use for the last couple of hires, because it's simply been so difficult.
No, I think that's it. I think you mentioned something there about the if you've got any concerns about somebody, then that your answer is pretty much there. They're not the right person to bring in, because I think there's one thing that everybody agrees on. The biggest mistake you can do is hire the wrong person, because ultimately that costs a lot of time, money, and effort to put right, and it's very difficult to measure the costs of hiring the wrong person, with all of the impact it has on the team and the efforts that go into getting someone bedded into the company in the first place. So it's but it is a tough market at the moment, and there's obviously, with the way things are right now, I think it's really focusing on the personality skills is a big part of it, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, on the personality side, are there certain things you tend to really look for, would you say? I mean, obviously, technical side, when it comes to certain disciplines, a bit like finance is within that. If someone's got a qualification, then you can hopefully assume that they know what they're doing on the technical side of things. But personality wise, are there certain things that really stand out to you when you're meeting people?
There is. I mean, we've identified values on our team, and which again may sound like something somebody else might have, but I and we as a team knows very well what they mean, right? So it'll be trust, right? It'll be enthusiasm, it'll be transparency, integrity, and support, and those are values that we all look for in the persons that we're interviewing, right? We want somebody who are capable of putting their ego far enough away to be really, really good team players, and people that puts the interest of the company first, right? It's not about you, it's not about your team, it's about the company, because that's what we need to succeed, all of us, because then we all win, and people that can do that, right? And including, say, they might want something or have something that they would like to implement, but if in the bigger picture it isn't actually they learn the right thing to do for the company as a whole, right? Well, then they should be able to just, well, okay, then you're right, I don't do this, or I do it in another way which is better for the company. People need to be able to do that.
No, it's true. And I think obviously you mentioned that recruitment is a kind of an ongoing challenge in throughout the career, but especially at Bolt right now. But I was wondering, in terms of your role at Bolt at the moment, what are the other challenges you currently face?
No, but I think it is exactly that, right? Finding the talent. I mean, we are really looking. I mean, we've hired people now from Argentina, right, Hong Kong, and are relocating them to Europe, because we simply haven't been able to find people fitting, the needs that we have within Europe or any specific country where we would like people to be located. It's very, very difficult to finding the talent. That's always the biggest challenge, I guess, when hiring. But But now it is very, very difficult. I mean, I've never, in my career experienced that it's so difficult to find the people that with the qualifications that you need. So that clearly is the starting point. And then we have for me a challenge is the rest of the finance organization. I mean, we are as you know, Bolt, even though we now have 8-9 years of history, right? We're still very much a startup, to some degree, right? So we are catching up a lot on the finance functions, which are always the ones that when you grow a business, understandably, are, starved, right? You don't start building a company and say, okay, I need to hire now, 15 accountants and 12 lawyers, right? It doesn't work like that. So we're catching up on that now. And that means that, we're fixing a lot of things. And there, of course, the challenge is also for my colleagues in the finance leads that to find the right people, right? And to fill the positions fast enough, right? Because there's an enormous need. And that's a huge challenge.
I mean, do you find that because things are changing, I mean, you've been talking about learning and development through the podcast as well, about how you continually you've been learning through your career. And one of the impacts I think we're all trying to learn as we go a little bit at the moment on is the impact of BI and data on our lives, both at home and at work. But I mean, with BI and data, do you think it's changing the future of the finance function just generally, but also in turn changing a bit the profiles of people that are going to fit into the teams in the future?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I saw that already at Spotify also, right? Where I mean, you need people who are technicians as well as understand tax, for instance, right? So you need somebody who has tax technology type of background also, right, on the team to be able to fully benefit from all the advantages that the technology is offering and which is increasing, almost exponentially, right? And of course, those opportunities you need to grasp, right? For two reasons: for efficiency reasons, three, and for scalability reasons, right? Because if you can automate it, it's much easier to scale. And then to avoid human errors, to eliminate or reduce work which is routine and not necessarily super fun and interesting. So absolutely, I think that and it goes, of course, across. Bolt is a massively data-driven company. We collect enormous volumes of data and use that very, very much in our business. I mean, it's absolutely critical. So and it just grows and grows, and it also, of course, is growing within the finance organizations and the tools that are available there.
I mean, linking in a couple of things we've been talking about with us. I mean, do you think with the amount of data that's now available, do you think that also changes the role of a leader, or may change the role of a leader and how you manage people in the future? Because when we've had previous guests on the podcast, this is a subject that has come up, and some of them are a bit concerned that actually having the amount of data available could almost lead towards people being managed a lot more by data and less by common sense and gut instincts. I mean, do you see that as something that you're going to be challenged by, or future leaders are going to be challenged by?
So I understand the concern on a conceptual level, but I don't think it's a new concern, though, right? You need high levels, very high levels, actually, of common sense to do jobs in our world, right? And whether or not you have big amounts of data, that doesn't change, right? Common sense still wins in the end. Right? If you have not switched on your common sense, you are going to make a lot of mistakes, right? you can never, blindly trust data just because you have a lot of it, right? To me, that's, it's not meaningful, right? You can benefit from it, but you can only benefit really if you apply your common sense to it. So and it's still, it's still about people, right? It's still about talent. It's still about giving people context and direction. It's about diversity, right? It's about the individual talent, figuring that out and nurturing that, and being present as a leader in a completely transparent way, right? That's what it's about. Doesn't matter how much data we have. That won't change.
No, it's interesting, and I think that what you mentioned there it aligns with what other leaders have said on the podcast as well. So it does seem that everyone's thinking along the same type of direction on this, which is good. It's a common sense approach to it, and hopefully the leaders of the future will keep that mentality going as well. And obviously through the conversation we've been talking a lot about what you've achieved through your career and all the things you've learned over the years. And I thought I'd just ask you as a final question, really looking more into the future, is there anything that's in terms of long-term goals that you want to achieve, learning and development wise, really looking into the future?
Yes, there is. And it's got nothing to do with tax, treasury, or internal audit, actually. As a pastime for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been engaged in personal and spiritual development very, very intensely. And I am following several different qualifications as a therapist. I just finished one, which is a certified family constellation facilitator. That is actually a therapeutic tool. I finished that in May after almost 3 years of education, and I am currently ongoing different also other qualifications, and with the ultimate goal to be able to be of service to fellow human beings that are suffering, that are looking for help, that needs to personal inner growth, that are spiritual seekers, and that is my long-term goal. And to be able to do that and not have to worry about really making any money on it as well. And that's very different from the tax world. Who knows, right? But I don't see myself working in tax in this world more than another 4 or 5 years. Then I think I will be qualified enough by then to actually try to be of service to my fellow human beings in a different way.
That's interesting, because I guess this also helps you in your current role as well, because especially if you're dealing with situations that are quite stressful and dealing with team members when they're going through stressful situations, you're well placed and well advised to help people through these stressful situations, whether it's work related or things going on outside of work, really.
Absolutely. And I apply it a lot and every day. And actually, there was one of my team members at Bolt a while back. He said you're like Yoda because you can sort of see through, and I took that as actually one of the biggest compliments I've ever received. And so I very much apply it, and I also actually teach the team a little bit about it. We had an offsite in Alicante in the last week of May, and one of the days there was a full day dedicated to what's called non-violent communication. So it's about communicating with, anybody. Could be professionally, but it could also be, all sorts of other relationships in a non-violent way. And non-violence doesn't mean that you shouldn't be hitting people, right? Violent communication comes in many forms, and is actually the prevalent form of how many people communicate today, which is why it's so difficult to solve conflicts, for instance. And so we had a full team of that, and the entire team, every single member of them said that was the best part of the entire offsite. So, that's so I am sort of sneaking in a little bit of these things already now.
No, I like it. So this could be your line on your business card or your LinkedIn profile, the Yoda of tax, treasury and audit. So I like that strap line. That's I think I know that's going to be our podcast headline really now. So that's good. Well, it's been awesome to speak to you, Jens. I really appreciate your time. I know it's really busy for you over there. To spend an hour with you today is a real privilege, and I know that a lot of the network will take a lot from this, as I have as well. So I really appreciate the time you spent going through all this with us. And obviously, if the network wants to reach out to you, what's the best way they can connect with you?
First, I'd like to say thank you for asking me, Paul. It's been a pleasure. Also on my end, and people are very welcome to, as probably is the most used way today, and to contact me through LinkedIn. I'll be very happy to connect with a lot of new people from the tax, treasury, and internal audit world, but also from the other parts of the world as well, who might come across this podcast.
No, that's excellent. Well, we'll make sure we put a link to your profile on the podcast promotions as well, so it's easy for people to connect. And yeah, once again, Jens, huge thanks for today. Really enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Paul, and you also.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.